Captain Jennifer Mason's knuckles whitened against the command chair's armrest as another friendly signal winked out on the tactical display. The UES Hyperion's bridge, normally humming with conversation and activity, had fallen silent except for the hollow echo of defeat playing across their communications array. The UES Valiant just went dark, Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his voice tight. That's the last of the Third Fleet. He didn't need to add that the Valiant had been their flagship, carrying Admiral Chen, and the core of Earth's Defense Command. The massive holographic display dominating the bridge's front wall painted a grim picture in blues and reds. Earth's defensive line, once a proud network of warships and orbital platforms, had been reduced to scattered debris fields. The Corexian invasion fleet moved through the wreckage like sharks, through bloody water, their angular ships arranged in perfect geometric formations that spoke of absolute confidence in their superiority. Maintain position behind Ganymede, Mason ordered, watching Jupiter's largest moon shield them from the enemy's sensor sweep. Status of our stealth systems, Dr. Walker. The chief engineer's voice crackled through the bridge speakers. Quantum field is holding steady at 98% effectiveness, Captain. As long as we don't move too quickly, they won't see us unless they literally bump into us. Small comfort, Mason muttered, standing to pace the bridge's perimeter. The Hyperion represented humanity's best-kept secret, a prototype vessel incorporating technologies that even most of the Admiralty didn't know existed. They'd been ordered to hold position and observe while Earth's conventional forces engaged the Corexians, forbidden from revealing their existence unless absolutely necessary. That moment had arrived. Captain, Communications Officer Sarah Hayes' voice cracked. Incoming transmission from Earth Command. Priority Ultra, eyes-only encryption. Mason returned to her chair, entering her authorization code into the small console. The message was brief, text only. Earth Defense Co-MMAND FINAL Direct TIT. 2. UES HYPERA. Ephraim. Admiral James C. Ian. MDSSAG FFOLOVUS. Uri all Louis V. Elieft. Make it current. Earth Command out. Play the Corexian broadcast, Mason ordered after a long moment, her voice steady despite the weight settling onto her shoulders. The alien transmission filled their speakers, its artificial translation carrying notes of smug superiority. Attention human defense forces, your resistance has been calculated as futile and is now concluded. The Corexian Empire demands immediate and unconditional surrender of all remaining military assets. Failure to comply will result in the complete extinction of your species. You have one planetary rotation to respond. Lieutenant Rodriguez, Mason called out. What's happening to the crew of our disabled ships? The tactical officer's fingers flew across his console, analyzing sensor data. His face paled. Captain, they're not taking prisoners. I'm detecting systematic weapons fire directed at escape pods and rescue shuttles. They're killing everyone. Mason stood again, this time walking to the front of the bridge. She stared at the tactical display, watching the methodical advance of the Corexian fleet. Everything humanity had built, all their dreams of peaceful expansion among the stars, were being systematically erased by an empire that saw them as nothing more than vermin to be exterminated. Dr. Walker, she called out, that special project of yours, the one we're not supposed to talk about, is it operational? Yes, Captain, came the immediate reply. Been ready for weeks. Just, nobody's sure what it'll do exactly. The simulations were inconclusive beyond extremely destructive. Mason nodded slowly, a plan already forming. Send everything we have on the Corexian fleet movements to my ready room. I need to know their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses. She turned to face her crew, seeing the same mix of fear and determination in their eyes that she felt in her heart. They think they've won. They think humanity will die quietly, but they don't know about us. They don't know what we're capable of. And by the time they figure it out, it'll be too late. The asteroid belt stretched before them like a celestial minefield, chunks of rock tumbling silently through the void. The UES Hyperion slipped between the spinning masses with precision that would have been impossible without its quantum stealth system, each movement carefully calculated to maintain their invisibility. Contact, bearing 340, Rodriguez reported, his voice barely above a whisper despite the fact that sound couldn't travel in space. Coraxian Patrol, 3 destroyers. They're heading toward the Europa mining colony. Captain Mason leaned forward in her chair. Show me. The tactical display shifted, revealing 3 arrow-shaped Coraxian vessels cutting through space with predatory grace. Their target was a collection of habitation domes and extraction equipment clinging to a large asteroid, home to over 300 civilian miners and their families. We have to do something, Hayes whispered from her communication station. Those are civilians. Maintaining stealth is our primary directive, Mason reminded her crew, though her jaw clenched as she watched the scene unfold. Dr. Walker, status of our systems. The chief engineer's face appeared on a secondary display, dark circles under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept since the invasion began. The quantum field is stable, but I've made a discovery about our special package. Captain, we need to talk. Privately. Mason found Walker in the ship's core 15 minutes later, surrounded by holographic equations and simulation data. The massive experimental reactor that powered the Hyperion hummed around them, its innovative design another of humanity's closely guarded secrets. Show me, she ordered. Walker gestured, and a new simulation appeared. We've been thinking about the Cascade system all wrong. It's not just a weapon. It's a key to understanding how reactor technology interacts across quantum fields. He pointed to a particular sequence. See this. When our reactor initiates the cascade, it doesn't just cause a normal chain reaction. It creates a quantum tunnel between power sources, forcing them to overload simultaneously. In English, Doctor. Walker's eyes gleamed with equal parts excitement and horror. We can make their own reactors work against them. One shot could take out multiple ships, as long as they're close enough together. The energy release would be astronomical. A distant explosion made them both look up. Through the reactor room's small viewport, they could see the flash of weapons fire illuminating the asteroid field. The Coraxian destroyers had reached the mining colony. How close do we need to be? Mason asked, her voice hard. Too close. We'd have to let them practically surround us for maximum effect. It would be a suicide run. The captain watched another explosion bloom against the darkness of space. Get back to the bridge, Doctor. I need you monitoring our stealth systems. She paused at the doorway. And keep working on that cascade theory. I have a feeling we're going to need it. When Mason returned to the bridge, the mining colony was gone. Where there had been life and human ingenuity, there was now only cooling debris and broken dreams. Log everything, she ordered, her voice steady despite the rage burning in her chest. Every attack, every casualty, every war crime. The galaxy needs to know what happened here. Captain, Rodriguez called out suddenly. I'm detecting more Coraxian formations entering the belt. They're systematically destroying everything. All the colonies, all the outposts. They're not even bothering to check if they're military or civilian. Mason stood at the front of the bridge, watching the tactical display update with new enemy positions. The Hyperion could run forever, hidden by their advanced technology. They could survive while humanity died around them. Or, plot me a course through the debris field, she ordered. Find me a pattern in their search formations, their blind spots. It's time we reminded the Coraxian Empire why humanity survived every extinction-level event our planet threw at us. She turned to face her crew, seeing the same cold determination in their eyes. We're not going to hide anymore. We're going to make them fear the dark. Firing solution computed, Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. The Hyperion hung motionless in space, hidden behind the burning wreckage of what had once been a civilian fuel depot. Ahead of them, a massive Coraxian tender vessel lumbered through the debris field, 3 escort destroyers arranged in perfect triangular formation around it. Captain Mason studied the display, noting the clockwork precision of the alien ship's movements. Time until they reached the targeting zone. 45 seconds, Captain. Their current course takes them right through the debris cloud. Dr. Walker's voice crackled through the bridge speakers. Quantum field is stable, but we'll only get one shot at this. The moment we fire, the stealth system will fluctuate for at least 3 seconds. That's 2 seconds longer than I'd like, Mason muttered. She watched the enemy formation drawing closer, their arrogant confidence evident in their lack of evasive maneuvering. Status of the Cascade Initiator. Primed and ready. I've modified the yield to focus on their fuel stores. If my calculations are correct, the reaction should. Save the physics lesson, Doctor. Lieutenant Rodriguez, target their primary fuel containment. Fire when ready. The bridge crew held their breath as the Coraxian ships entered the optimal firing position. The tender's massive bulk blocked the escort's view of the Hyperion's position, exactly as Mason had planned. Firing. A single pulse of energy, barely visible to the human eye, leaped from the Hyperion's concealed position. It struck the tender's fuel storage with surgical precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then reality seemed to tear itself apart. The quantum cascade ripped through the tender's power systems, igniting its fuel stores in a chain reaction that exceeded even Walker's predictions. The explosion consumed the massive ship from within, but instead of dissipating, the energy sought out the nearest compatible power sources, the escort destroyer's reactors. By all that's holy, Hayes whispered as they watched the destruction unfold. The destroyer's own power plants became part of the cascade, their energy adding to the conflagration. The formation disappeared in a sphere of pure white energy that seemed to distort the space around it. When the light faded, nothing remained of the 4 ships except scattered debris and a rapidly expanding field of radiation. Damage analysis, Mason ordered, her voice steady despite the awesome display of destruction they'd just witnessed. Rodriguez worked his console, his eyes wide. All 4 ships, completely destroyed. The cascade effect was far more powerful than our simulations suggested. I'm detecting quantum distortions throughout the debris field. He paused, checking another reading. Captain, there's something else. The explosion. It had a signature similar to a reactor malfunction. Unless they know exactly what to look for, the Coraxians will think this was an accident. A slow smile spread across Mason's face. Send all sensor data to Dr. Walker for analysis. I want to know exactly what happened and how we can reproduce it. She stood, walking to the front of the bridge. And get me everything we have on Coraxian communication protocols. I think it's time we added some confusion to their ranks. Hours later, the Hyperion watched from the shadows as Coraxian rescue ships combed through the debris field. Their communications, intercepted and translated by Hayes, revealed growing uncertainty among their commanders. They're blaming the explosion on unstable fuel mixtures, Hayes reported, monitoring the enemy channels. There's already argument about which supply officer will be executed for the oversight. Good. Mason nodded. Prepare a coded transmission using their own encryption. Make it look like it came from their fleet's engineering division. Something about potential reactor instabilities across multiple ship classes. Psychological warfare, Captain. Rodriguez asked with a grim smile. They came here expecting an easy conquest, Mason replied, watching the enemy ships nervously adjust their formations, increasing the space between vessels. Instead, we'll give them something they've never faced before, fear of the unknown. She turned to her crew, seeing the first real hope in their eyes since the invasion began. Plot our next attack vector. Let's introduce some more accidents to their fleet. Message intercepted, Hayes announced, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction. The Correxian flagship is demanding explanations for the destruction of Battle Group 7. The Hyperion's bridge crew had been working non-stop for 36 hours, orchestrating what appeared to be a series of catastrophic accidents throughout the enemy fleet. Their latest victory, the apparent mutual destruction of 3 Correxian cruisers, had sent shockwaves through the invasion force. "Play it," Mason ordered, settling deeper into her command chair. The translated message filled the bridge. High Command demands immediate explanation for loss of Battle Group 7. 3 capital ships destroying each other is not possible. Find the saboteurs or face immediate execution. "They're eating themselves alive," Rodriguez commented, manipulating the tactical display to show the increasingly erratic movements of the Correxian fleet. Ships that had once moved in perfect formation now kept suspicious distances from each other. "I've counted 14 instances of friendly fire accidents in the past 12 hours, and those are ones we didn't cause." Mason nodded. "Dr. Walker, status of our next surprise." The engineer's tired face appeared on a secondary screen. "Ready whenever you are, Captain. I've modified the Cascade Initiator to create a low-yield pulse. Won't destroy the ships, but it'll scramble their communications and targeting systems. Should look exactly like sabotage." "Perfect." Mason studied the tactical display, watching their next target, a Correxian missile destroyer that had separated from its squadron. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, begin the operation." The Hyperion glided silently through space, its quantum stealth field rendering it invisible to the increasingly paranoid Correxian sensors. They approached the isolated destroyer from behind, maintaining perfect position in its sensor blind spot. "Initiating transmission," Hayes reported. She'd spent hours crafting the perfect fake message, using intercepted Correxian codes, making it look like they're receiving orders to attack their own support ships. The Cascade Pulse struck the destroyer's communications array just as the fake message arrived. The combination of quantum interference and falsified orders created exactly the chaos they'd hoped for. The Correxian ship's weapons suddenly came alive, its missile batteries launching a full spread at the nearest supply vessel. The targeted ship, caught completely off guard, exploded spectacularly. Before anyone could react, the malfunctioning destroyer managed to damage 2 more ships before the rest of the fleet could respond. "Correxian command channels are going crazy," Hayes reported, struggling to keep up with the flood of panic transmissions. "The destroyer's captain is claiming his systems were hacked by separatist infiltrators. 3 different squadron commanders are demanding permission to open fire on suspected compromised vessels." Mason allowed herself a small smile. "Send the second message." Hayes transmitted another carefully crafted communication, this one appearing to come from a high-ranking Correxian officer. It suggested that radical elements within their own empire had infiltrated the invasion fleet, seeking to sabotage their victory. The effect was immediate and devastating. Ships began breaking formation, commanders refusing orders they couldn't verify. The once mighty armada started to fragment as paranoia spread through their ranks. "Captain," Rodriguez called out suddenly. "The Correxian admiral is ordering all ships to consolidate around his flagship. He's trying to regain control of the situation." Mason stood, walking to the tactical display. She watched as the enemy fleet began a massive reorganization, shifting from their spread-out search pattern into a tight defensive formation. "They think they'll be safer together," she mused, then turned to her crew. "What they've actually done is give us exactly what we need. Dr. Walker." "I see it, Captain." The engineer's voice held a mix of awe and anticipation. With them clustered that closely together, a full power cascade reaction would tear through their entire fleet like a chain of dominoes. "Plot a course," Mason ordered. "But not yet. Let them stew in their paranoia a bit longer. Let them exhaust themselves jumping at shadows." She smiled grimly. "When we finally show ourselves, I want them too terrified to think straight." "What happens then?" Rodriguez asked. Mason's expression hardened. "Then we'll show them why you should never corner a human. Begin calculating firing solutions for our final attack." We're going to give them a lesson about humanity they'll never forget, assuming any of them survive to remember it. The Hyperion's bridge was bathed in the red glow of battle stations as Captain Mason studied the tactical display. The Coraxian fleet had split into 6 distinct battle groups, each protecting their own sector of space. Their desperate attempt to maintain control had only made them more vulnerable. Battle Group 3 is isolated, Rodriguez reported, highlighting a cluster of ships near the Mars orbital zone. 15 vessels, mostly destroyers. They're maintaining tight formation after losing 3 ships to mysterious malfunctions yesterday. Mason nodded. Dr. Walker, status of the modified Cascade device. Ready for field testing, Captain. The engineer's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. I've adjusted the quantum resonance to match their new shield frequencies. They won't know what hit them. Show me the target zone, Mason ordered. The display zoomed in on the Coraxian formation. Their ships were arranged in a defensive sphere, weapons pointed outward. What had once been a sign of their military precision now looked like the huddling of frightened prey. Begin Operation Ghostlight, Mason commanded. Lieutenant Hayes, transmit the bait. Hayes' fingers flew across her console, broadcasting a carefully crafted distress signal using captured Coraxian codes. To the paranoid battle group, it would appear to be a friendly ship reporting human activity in their sector. The response was immediate. 5 destroyers broke from the formation, moving to investigate the phantom signal. Just as Mason had predicted, their fear of appearing cowardly overrode their caution. Quantum field at maximum efficiency, Walker reported. They won't detect us until it's far too late. The Hyperion slipped between the separated ships like a shark through a school of fish. Their first target was the rearmost destroyer, the one furthest from its companions. Initiating Cascade Pulse, Rodriguez announced. 3, 2, 1. The destroyer's reactor core went critical in seconds, the quantum cascade turning its power systems into a weapon. But this time, they'd added a new twist. The explosion released a wave of electromagnetic energy that temporarily blinded the other ship's sensors. In the chaos that followed, the Hyperion struck again and again. Each destroyed ship added to the confusion, their dying emissions creating a web of sensor ghosting that made it impossible for the Coraxians to track their attacker. Battle Group Command Channel is going berserk, Hayes reported, monitoring their communications. They're firing blindly now, hitting their own ships. Mason watched as the carefully orchestrated destruction unfolded. The remaining ships, unable to distinguish friend from foe, began firing at sensor contacts that might or might not be the enemy. The Hyperion merely had to avoid their wild shots while picking off targets of opportunity. Reading multiple reactor breaches, Rodriguez called out. The cascade effect is spreading through their formation faster than they can respond. Within minutes, the battle group had effectively destroyed itself. The few surviving ships fled in different directions, their crews too terrified to maintain formation. Intercept their transmissions to Fleet Command, Mason ordered. I want to hear how they explain this debacle. The translated message was telling. Under attack by unknown enemy using impossible weapons. Ships vanish, then reappear, then explode. Cannot maintain formation. Request immediate reinforcement. The main fleet is responding, Hayes announced. The Admiral. He's ordering all surviving ships to converge on his position. They're abandoning their sector defense strategy. Mason's eyes narrowed as she watched the tactical display update, showing hundreds of Coraxian vessels beginning to move toward a central point. They think numbers will protect them, she mused. They're gathering their entire remaining force into one massive formation. It's a target-rich environment, Rodriguez suggested with a predatory grin. It's more than that. Mason stood, her expression intense. It's the opportunity we've been waiting for. Once they're all clustered together, one properly placed cascade device could trigger a chain reaction through their entire fleet. It would be a suicide mission, Walker warned. We'd never escape the blast radius. Mason nodded slowly, watching the enemy ships continue their convergence. Send all sensor data and battle recordings to the encrypted buoy. Make sure Earth receives everything we've learned about their weaknesses. She turned to face her crew. It's time to show the Coraxian Empire why humanity has survived everything the universe has thrown at us. We don't know how to give up. We only know how to win, no matter the cost. Begin recording, Captain Mason ordered, her voice steady despite the weight of what they were about to attempt. The Hyperion's bridge crew worked silently at their stations, each preparing for what would likely be their final mission. Recording active, Captain, Hayes confirmed softly. Mason faced the camera. This is Captain Jennifer Mason of the UES Hyperion. If you're receiving this message, we've succeeded in our final mission. Everything we've learned about the Coraxian fleet, their technologies, their tactics, their weaknesses, has been stored in this buoy. Use it well. And remember us not for our sacrifice, but for what we proved. That humanity will never submit, never surrender, and never go quietly into extinction. She paused, then added more softly, to our families, we love you, and we die protecting everything we hold dear. Captain, Rodriguez interrupted, his voice tense. The Coraxian fleet has completed their consolidation. 812 ships in tight formation around their flagship. They're launching systematic sensor sweeps of the entire sector. Show me their search pattern. The tactical display illuminated, showing concentric rings of Coraxian ships spreading outward from their flagship. Their formation was a testament to both their military precision and their growing desperation. Ships packed so tightly together that their shield perimeters nearly touched. Dr. Walker, Mason called out. Status of our final modifications. The engineer's image appeared on screen, his lab cluttered with dismantled equipment. The cascade initiator is now tied directly into our main reactor. Once we start the overload sequence, there's no stopping it. We'll have maybe 3 minutes before critical mass. What's the projected blast radius? Walker's expression was grim. With their ships packed that closely together, the chain reaction could spread through their entire fleet. The energy release will be astronomical, like a small star going nova. Mason nodded, then turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Rodriguez, begin Operation Final Dawn. Launch the modified escape pods. The Hyperion had spent the last few hours seeding the space around the Coraxian fleet with captured escape pods, each rigged to emit false reactor signatures. The enemy, already paranoid about phantom attacks, would soon have dozens of ghost contacts to chase. Pods away, Rodriguez confirmed, beginning to register on their sensors. They're taking the bait. Multiple squadrons breaking formation to investigate. Perfect. Mason allowed herself a small smile. Their rigid command structure is working against them. No commander wants to be the one who ignored a potential threat. She straightened in her chair. Helm, take us in. Full stealth approach. The Hyperion glided through space like a ghost, its quantum field rendering it invisible to the increasingly frantic Coraxian sensors. They watched as the alien fleet spread itself thinner, responding to the phantom signals from the escape pods. We're in position, Rodriguez reported after several tense minutes. Center mass of their formation. If we initiate here, the cascade effect will spread through their entire fleet. Mason stood, walking to the front of the bridge. Ship-wide broadcast, Lieutenant Hayes. Channel open, Captain. Crew of the Hyperion, Mason began, her voice carrying to every compartment of the ship. In a few moments, we will reveal ourselves to the enemy. They will see, in their final moments, that humanity is not so easily erased from the galaxy. Each of you volunteered for this mission knowing it was likely one way. Your courage, your dedication, your willingness to sacrifice everything for Earth and her people. It humbles me. It has been the highest honor of my life to serve with you. She paused, looking at each bridge crew member in turn. Begin recording your final messages home. When the Coraxians surround us, when they think they finally caught their prey, we'll show them why humanity has survived every extinction event our planet has thrown at us. We don't just die. We die changing the very rules of the game. Multiple Correction ships closing on our position, Rodriguez reported. They're starting to detect irregularities in the quantum field. Good. Mason's smile was fierce. Dr. Walker, begin reactor overload sequence. Let's give the Coraxian Empire a lesson about humanity they'll never forget. The quantum stealth field collapsed like a curtain being drawn back, revealing the Hyperion in the heart of the Coraxian formation. For a moment, there was absolute stillness in space. Predator and prey alike frozen in a tableau of revelation. Broadcast on all frequencies, Mason commanded, her voice iron. Let them hear humanity's last words. Hayes' fingers flew across her console. Channel open, broadcasting in both English and Correction. Mason stood, facing the main view screen where hundreds of enemy ships now hung like a web of death around them. This is Captain Jennifer Mason of the UES Hyperion. Before we end this, you're going to watch something. Lieutenant Hayes, transmit the package. Across every Coraxian ship, every command screen, every tactical display, the evidence of their atrocities began to play. The Hyperion's recordings of civilian massacres, the destruction of rescue pods, the systematic elimination of unarmed colonies, all of it broadcast in perfect clarity. We want you to see what you've done. Mason continued, her voice carrying the weight of humanity's judgment. We want you to understand why what happens next was inevitable. You didn't just attack Earth. You attacked everything humanity stands for. And now you'll learn why we're still here after every extinction-level event our planet threw at us. Coraxian vessels closing fast, Rodriguez reported, his hand steady on the tactical controls. They're surrounding us completely, exactly as planned. Reactor status, Mason asked. Dr. Walker's voice was grim but satisfied. Cascade sequence initiated. Core temperature rising beyond safety parameters. 2 minutes until critical mass. The Coraxian Admiral's response came through. Translated in real time. Your suicide will mean nothing. Your species ends today. Mason's laugh was cold. Lieutenant Hayes, show them our final gift. Let them see what they've really surrounded. The tactical display updated, revealing the web of modified escape pods that positioned throughout the enemy fleet. Each one now pulsed with building energy, creating a lattice of quantum resonance points that would amplify the coming cascade reaction. By all the stars, the Coraxian transmission carried genuine fear now. All ships, emergency retreat, full power to engines. Too late, Rodriguez announced with grim satisfaction. They're too tightly packed. The closest ships are already caught in our quantum wake. The Hyperion's hull began to vibrate as the reactor core approached critical mass. Emergency lights flashed across every deck as power systems overloaded one by one. On the bridge, the crew remained at their stations, backs straight, faces set with determined pride. 1 minute to cascade initiation, Walker reported. Captain, it's been an honor. Mason nodded, watching the enemy ships struggle to escape their own formation. Begin final transmission. Include all tactical data from the battle. Earth needs to know how to fight these bastards. Transmission away, Hayes confirmed. 30 seconds. Look, Rodriguez whispered. The view screen showed the first signs of the quantum cascade effect. Energy patterns like Aurora Borealis danced between ships, connecting them in a web of inevitable destruction. The closest Coraxian vessels began to break apart as their own reactor cores were forced into sympathetic resonance. This is how humanity fights, Mason broadcast one final time. Not just with technology, not just with courage, but with the absolute certainty that we will protect our own. Remember us. Remember the Hyperion. Remember that we died standing. The cascade reaction reached critical mass. The Hyperion's reactor core breached in a blast of pure white energy that rippled outward like a tsunami. Each Coraxian ship it touched became part of the reaction, their own power plants adding to the destruction. The chain reaction spread faster than the ships could flee, creating an expanding sphere of annihilation that consumed everything in its path. The last thing recorded by the Hyperion sensors was the complete disintegration of the Coraxian flagship, the massive vessel torn apart by the same power that had driven its campaign of extinction. In the end, over 700 enemy ships were caught in the quantum firestorm that marked humanity's refusal to die quietly. The light from the explosion was visible from Earth, a new star briefly born in the sky, a testament to the lengths humanity would go to protect its own, and a warning to any who would follow in the Coraxian Empire's footsteps. 5 years after the Battle of Sol, first speaker Thul addressed the Galactic Council with trembling hands. The massive chamber was silent as recordings from the recovered Coraxian black boxes played behind him, showing the final moments of the UES Hyperion. "We were wrong about humanity," he admitted, his translator struggling to convey the depth of emotion in his voice. The Coraxian Empire thought them primitive, believing their limited expansion and defensive capabilities indicated weakness. That assumption cost them nearly their entire invasion fleet. The assembled representatives watched as the quantum cascade reaction loomed across space once again, its destructive beauty still haunting even after years of analysis. "A single human warship," Thul continued, "using technology we didn't believe possible, destroyed over 700 of the most advanced vessels in known space. But it's not the destruction that should concern us. It's what it represents." He gestured to another display, showing the decoded final transmissions from the Hyperion. Captain Mason's voice filled the chamber. "Remember that we died standing. The humans didn't just fight back. They revolutionized warfare itself. Their quantum cascade technology, glimpsed only in its moment of destruction, has forced every spacefaring civilization to reconsider their military doctrine. But more importantly, they showed us something about their species that we fail to understand." The chamber's displays shifted to show Earth today. The planet, far from being crushed by the invasion attempt, had undergone a transformation. New cities rose from the ashes of the war, their architecture defiantly reaching for the stars. Shipyards orbited every planet in their system, producing vessels that incorporated lessons learned from the Hyperion's last stand. "Humanity doesn't know how to accept extinction," Thul explained. "When faced with annihilation, they don't simply fight back. They change the rules of engagement entirely. The Hyperion sacrifice bought them time, yes, but it did something far more significant. It proved humanity's potential. In the years since the battle, Earth had reverse-engineered every piece of Coraxian technology they could salvage. Their ships now combine the best of both human ingenuity and alien advancement. More importantly, they'd done something no one expected. They'd shared their discoveries with other emerging civilizations, creating a network of allied worlds united in their determination to prevent another Coraxian empire from rising. The survivors from the Coraxian fleet brought back more than tales of defeat," Thul concluded. "They brought back a warning that has spread throughout the galaxy. Humanity will not go quietly. They will not surrender. And if forced to choose between submission and destruction, they will find a third option that no one else imagined possible." He activated one final recording, the recovered memory core of the Hyperion, showing Captain Mason's last ship-wide address. "Each of you volunteered for this mission, knowing it was likely one way. Your courage, your dedication, your willingness to sacrifice everything for Earth and her people. It humbles me." "The Hyperion's crew died," Thul said softly. "But their sacrifice changed the course of galactic history. Today, we vote on humanity's application to join the Galactic Council. Some have argued they're too aggressive, too unpredictable. I argue that's exactly why we need them. In the 5 years since the invasion, they've advanced more than most species do in 50. They don't just survive catastrophe, they grow stronger from it." The chamber erupted in discussion, but the outcome was never really in doubt. The vote was unanimous. As the human representatives were called in to accept their position, a new recording began to play. The message now required learning in every military academy across known space. "This is Captain Jennifer Mason of the UES Hyperion. If you're receiving this message, we've succeeded in our final mission. Remember us not for our sacrifice, but for what we proved. That humanity will never submit, never surrender, and never go quietly into extinction. We are still here, we are still standing, and we are still humanity. And that is enough. In orbit above Earth, a memorial station hung in space, its shape echoing the Hyperion's distinctive silhouette. Its running lights pulsed steadily in the darkness, an eternal reminder that sometimes victory comes not from surviving, but from ensuring that your sacrifice changes the universe itself.